Hello, in this video we're going to talk about 5 reasons why you're not having fulfilling relationships. And of course there's like so many reasons or factors that contribute to having unfulfilling relationships, but I'm going to name 5 that are not very obvious and that you might notice in your lives. So the first one is that you're playing social games a bit too much, and that of course you have to be polite in social situations and all that, but if you're not being spontaneous enough, then you're not being open enough, and if you're not open, you can't reach that depth, that feeling of intimacy in a relationship, and that might be a reason why you're not having fulfilling relationships. So sometimes people think that it's rude to be straightforward or honest with other people. Like if you tell them what you think, then that's rude, and that of course that's understandable. But what you can do is that you can be honest about your own experiences or stories that are like embarrassing to you, and it wouldn't make someone dislike you. It's actually the opposite. It would evoke feelings, positive feelings in the other person. So be frank, be open, and be sincere, and that would help you have more fulfilling, more meaningful, and deep and intimate relationships. So the second reason is kind of like the same, but it's when only one of the persons in the relationship is being open. So sometimes there's people who are very good at encouraging people to talk. They have this like a way of making people feel accepted, and that's a very good thing. But sometimes those people aren't very good at sharing their own experiences, right? So if you're one of those people, if you're unconsciously doing that, maybe you should try being a little less guarded, and you should be a bit more vulnerable with other people, and you should share your own experiences, your own embarrassing maybe experiences, or not necessarily embarrassing, but experiences that would create this sort of openness that would stop the relationship from being one-sided. Because if only one of the people, one of the persons is being open, then the relationship, the two people are not on the same wavelength. So the third reason that could be stopping you from a fulfilling or a deep relationship is that you're living in the past. Maybe someone looked at you in a weird way once, or maybe they said something that you felt was rude, and then you keep on thinking about it and then mold your behavior according to that. See, the goal here is to be like children, and children don't really think about things that happened in the past. They live in the moment, live in the present. Of course, when you're an adult, you have to be careful if someone is exploiting you or if someone is unnecessarily mean to you. But if you lose that childlike innocence, then your relationships become less deep and less authentic. All of the best friendships that you've ever had, all of the best relationships that you've had are often in childhood or teenage, right? When you become an adult, things become much more serious and professional and sophisticated, and it stops being spontaneous and innocent. So if you want to have this sense of openness with someone, then you should try to be spontaneous and childlike. So children don't really think about things that happened in the past. So stop being so concerned with what someone said to you or what someone did to you, unless they do it constantly. If they do it more than 5 times and you get hurt, then you probably shouldn't pursue a relationship with that person. But give people a chance. Don't just shut off people because you think that they might be being rude. So reason number 4 is when you don't have complementary relationships. Beautiful relationships are formed when two people are bringing unique set of skills to the relationship, skills that the other person lacks. And it's kind of like when you need someone, then you will go to greater lengths at trying to compromise, trying to be patient with the other person, and that would result in intimacy being developed because it takes time. And if you're being patient, then you have time to form this deep relationship. And also just the mere fact that if you share a common goal with the other person, then if you have different set of skills, you'd be getting more out of life with minimum effort. So the best kind of relationships are relationships that are complementary, where people are focused towards the same thing, but they're doing different things. They need each other to move forward together. Reason number 5 is when one of the persons, or maybe both people, are not willing to compromise Also, if you don't notice the sacrifices that they've made and you just notice the small things that irritate you all the time, or maybe you think that they're selfish and you're not seeing things that they've done in the past or things that they're doing now, that those sacrifices that they're making for you, then that's really bad for relationships. And if you do that, or maybe you don't even know that you do that, then maybe you should focus a bit more, pay more attention, and try to see things that people do for you. So coming back to compromise, compromise is so important, because when one person is in this chaos of emotions, when they're full of anger or they're full of sorrow, then the other person has to compromise. Then if you become too rational, oh, you're angry at me, so I'll be angry back at you, then there's just aggression, and then there's no solution to that, and people get so frustrated at each other that they would much rather just stop being in that relationship. And that's much easier to do nowadays, because you don't need people, so you don't need to be in that relationship. You can just look for another person. You can just look for another person to be friends with. You can just look for another person to marry. And then, if you don't take your time, if you're not patient enough with someone, of course that would result in superficial relationships, right? Because you haven't taken the time to build roots. So sometimes you should not compromise, and that's when you've compromised for so long and the other person doesn't notice your efforts. But like most of the time, you should try to compromise, because nowadays we've been programmed to just think about ourselves and not think about other people. It's like, if this happens to me, then I need to quit the relationship, or if I'm not being seen, if me, right? So if you try to just focus outwards and focus on what the other person is doing to you, and then look at their situation, put yourself in their shoes, maybe you would be more compromising towards them and more loving towards them, and you'd see things that are beautiful about them that you haven't noticed before, because you've always been looking inside and not outside. So yeah, bye bye.